From Interfaith Alliance, this is State of Belief Radio. I'm your host, Reverend Welton Gaddy. We've heard several perspectives on different elements of President Obama's second inauguration. I'd like to take a couple of minutes to share my thoughts on watching and attending parts of this historic event. Washington is a strange town in which things seem to get done slowly and argumentatively, if at all. The capital of the nation is loved and revered by patriots, criticized and scorned by partisans. During the days of this past week, I personally have seen and felt all of these different reactions to this city, which is the symbol of our democracy. Inauguration Day is a day like no other in the District of Columbia. Banners fly, rituals unfold with a flourish. The music accompanying the ceremony stirs citizens' souls, and fidelity to the Constitution of our nation takes center stage. This time around, President Barack Obama seemed to speak from the depth of his being, saying not so much what seemed appropriate, but what appeared to be the convictions of his heart and the goals of his presidency over the next 4 years. By any measure, he likely laid out the most progressive, if not outright liberal agenda of any president, for sure in recent history and maybe ever. Though few members of the minority party bothered to attend the ceremony at the Capitol, the last word of his inaugural address had barely escaped from the mouth of the president before criticism began to fly with the speed of the chilling wind that caused participants in the festivities to shiver. I find it striking to remember that all of these grand celebrations of democracy are taking place in an expanse of land, the residents of which are not allowed to vote or to have a voice in the government of their homes, schools, family, and all else. Democracy, I ask? Where we talk about it most, it is least apparent? We're filled with inconsistencies, I conclude. I attended the 57th presidential inaugural prayer service held in the National Cathedral. Heartwarming, spine-tingling contributions to that service came one after another. Seated not far from the President and Mrs. Obama, the Vice President and Dr. Biden, I could see their faces and occasionally note their changes in emotions. I dare say that this event in this inaugural time was the most multi-faith event that I've seen in a public governmental ceremony. Calls to prayer rang out from a rabbi, an imam, and a pastor. Texts from the Hebrew Scriptures, Christian Scriptures, and the Quran were read. Martin Luther King Jr. was honored and quoted. The array of religious leaders present represented more of America's religions than in the past, and still more diversity was to be found in the seats that surrounded the high altar. But still missing were acknowledgments of all the people of America. The president and those seated in that vast expanse with him were told that only God can bring healing to this nation and make us great. Think me odd if you wish, but I choked a little on that declaration. What about those in our nation with no religious affiliation and those with convictions that run counter to religion? Can they too not help us come together? As a Christian minister, I have a strong theology of God. But my understanding of God is that the divine waits on our actions without direct intrusion, longing for us to reconcile with each other, to see that the poor are helped and the hungry fed. It's not the role of anybody in our nation to be waiting on God to fix or to heal our land. And let's rid ourselves of blaming God for our divisiveness. Doing the work of reconciliation and unification is our work. That's the business of a nation whose citizens are religious and non-religious. Another inconsistency worthy of note. Today, the celebrations of the inauguration are over, and Arctic wind blows through the streets just a few days ago filled with marching bands and festive floats. It is in the chill of the city that we are left to work. Celebrations and oaths will recede. Arguments will be fired up again. And then we will see what our nation really feels about democracy, about religious freedom, about safety for our children, about our citizenship in the world, about education, about the environment, about justice, and about peace. Along with a divided citizenry, I hope and I wish, but I have to tell you that I also pray. But all of my longings, all of the cries of my heart are for the full realization of the promises of our Constitution and the protection of rights, liberty, and justice for all of us. Fulfillment of those two hopes, wishes, and prayers would erase the contradictions that characterize this city and the divisions that slice our land into red and blue segments, and we would be, could be, again, a nation indivisible with liberty and justice for all.